Good morning all. It's a real pleasure here to talk to you from an industry perspective. But before we start, I want to make a couple of quick comments. One, just acknowledge that the ideas and the thoughts that we've got today really reflect an industry sort of view from EFPIA, where we've worked across multiple companies, but also at the same time within those companies, many experts in the HTA field. We're probably looking at 60 or 70 experts that have worked together over the last few months as we've sort of looked at the UNETA 21 proposals itself. Secondly, a big thank you to Rosa. As an economist, I just wasn't expecting to see an econometric analysis presented today, so that has excited me very much. So thank you there. So if we move on, I'm going to have to put my glasses on so I can see at the back there. Just to start, around stakeholder engagement. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's the health technology developer, if it's clinicians, if it's patients, if it's the HTA bodies, or the wider sort of external scientific community, even beyond the European Union. Engagement is critical for all processes, and particularly for the regulation itself, where there are multiple objectives, and we've sort of just listed a few here, around that. You know, the regulation has the potential, if we get this right, to help patients access needs, address their needs and access innovative medicines, but also being involved in the assessment, the discussions, and at a member state, the final decisions that are going to affect them as patients and their treatment pathways. Clinicians also in the wider healthcare community, aiming to access and be able to use the best possible treatments for their patients. The health technology assessment bodies themselves, you know, how do we work in a harmonized way? How are we collaborative? What are the efficiency gains, the resource gains from that? And how do we ultimately improve the quality of work across the whole of the European Union itself? And then finally, the health technology developers. You know, we really want to obtain a high-quality report that's consistent, that is showing the relative benefit of medicines. But we also see the real advantages in quite a sort of fragmented HTA system currently within Europe, to be able to reduce the duplication in there and bring a consistent evidence package to all member states. But to achieve that, we really need meaningful and ongoing engagement throughout the process. So I'm going to talk of a couple of areas. One is over the next couple of years, and where developer input and engagement can help improve the process as we set that up in the implementation. And then secondly, just talk a little bit around once we reach 2025, the role of the developer and some of the proposals and thoughts for discussions later today that we can have of where we can add value and why our involvement is really impactful. So if we can move to the next slide, Elaine. Thank you. So we are uniquely placed. It's quite a big boast, but we are uniquely placed to help deliver on the success of the regulation itself over the next 2 years. And there's three key themes that I'd like to highlight here. First is our knowledge of EU member states. You know, we are in a position for each company and across the companies to really understand what are the processes, not just at a HTA level, but the follow-on through at the payer level, the final decision making, and also that sort of pull through into the clinics and with the patients themselves. That's a unique knowledge that we hold collectively as an industry. We also recognise that, having worked across many HTA bodies in the EU and worldwide as well, so we have that international experience, where are the commonalities between those HTA bodies from a scientific assessment perspective, but also where are the differences? And that's really important because, you know, that allows us to help contribute to where do we really think there's opportunities for harmonization here, that's going to benefit everyone, but also where are the unique differences between HTA bodies, and that might be in the methodology that they look at, it might be on the endpoints that they look at, it could be just general process, but where are those differences that may not fit into a harmonized sort of approach, but could be supplemented by things through complementary analyses themselves. The scientific debate, we've got a lot of methodological guidelines coming through at the moment. That's a scientific discussion. And again, we've got HTA methodology expertise and knowledge from around the world and across across all the HTA bodies here in the EU. And we also have a whole range of methodological experts within each company itself. Yeah, I'm a health economist, but we have clinical outcome assessment experts. We have biostatisticians. We have our regulatory teams, regulatory science, our clinical teams, plus many, many more, patient safety, epidemiology, real-world evidence. That's a huge amount of expertise that we can add to the scientific debate itself. And therefore, we are also scientific thought partners in this discussion. And it isn't around the current methodology, that's important, but also what about the future methodology as well? Where are we heading? How does that align with the pipelines of different companies as well? And the challenges that's going to bring as part of that. And then finally, we've got the implementation. We work with each member state over and over again. So we understand what needs are. We hope we understand what the needs are on that, but have a good sense of that. The submission template itself, how is that at a European level going to be pulled through that's going to work for everybody, but also become something that's going to be useful at a member state as well. It's not just the JCA report that goes down to the member state, it's also the developer's submission. On that, and we can't duplicate any extra analyses, can't duplicate the analyses done in the European side. Also, the report template itself is really important. It's a scientific assessment, but at the same time, it's got to fit into national processes and how we deal with that. So therefore, we want to be part of that engagement with the member states as well. How do we incorporate this at a member state level? How are you going to pull through the European report? How are we going to do our own submissions at a national level, which we will have to do, supported by either complementary analysis on the clinical assessment or also on the economic assessment itself? And how do we encourage uptake? The success of JCA is also measured by the uptake in the member states itself. We want to be part of that success. And ultimately, we're all here around what access can patients have for innovative medicines. So if we move on to the next slide, this is now moving forward. So we're in 2025, and we're talking around the JCAs. We've already heard today around horizon scanning. The developers are a very, very important part of that horizon scanning, trying to improve the quality of those horizon scanning reports. But at the same time, we're also involved in things like joint scientific consultation. We have expert knowledge on the disease itself. We understand our own technology, and we have a good overview as part of the research that we do from very early stages of development into what's going to happen at the country level into clinical practice. So we have a good opportunity there to have a meaningful engagement in particularly the scoping process, where we can talk around, what are the relevant populations in our clinical evidence base, what are the comparators, what really is being used in the countries to reflect what is the best available treatment in each member state for those populations itself. And, we really want to make this a timely, efficient and high quality process. And we believe we can contribute to that discussion. Then moving into the sort of assessment side itself. So evidence synthesis, the methods, the assessment report. We understand our regulatory procedures and what's going on with the EMA during that time. We have in-depth knowledge in that. We're going to have to work internally with our regulatory colleagues to pull through to make sure we're aligned very much there. But, meaningful engagement and discussions throughout this process is going to be really important, both to reflect regulatory changes, but also in quite a lot of trials, particularly in oncology, we might have multiple readouts. So what's happening with additional data and the maturity of that data. As part of this, we will get a list of PICOs from the coordination group. That's going to present us with challenges on sometimes the methodology that we do, what is the evidence that's needed. Actually having that discussion at a scientific level is really healthy because we can understand what is needed from the assessors themselves, whilst also having a discussion about what is possible and actually where's the compromise there if there needs to be compromise, which will give us, minimize both sort of delays and the number of requests that come in from the assessors, but hopefully make a much better and higher quality submission, which will be reflected in a higher quality assessment report. And then the final stage is that sort of final access for patients. What does that mean? So we are going to have to pull through our submission and work with the JCA report into member state national submissions themselves. And they are still fragmented. The value assessment framework and appraisal that goes on at a member state is different. The methods, economic analyses, etc., is also different from that. So we need that. Understanding what member state PICOs are early on in the process is really important, both from a manufacturer perspective, but also for the member states. We want to understand where are those potential complementary clinical analyses going to be? What are the economic analyses we're going to need to do against the relevant population and the relevant comparator for that member state? Knowing that up front and having those discussions allow us to actually provide the evidence, the supplementary evidence at a member state much more effectively. And then finally, what are the remaining uncertainties? Let's have that discussion both at a European level and a member state level. Where are the uncertainties? How can we carry on with that through post-launch evidence generation, or it could be just generation at a local level? So the final slide is, in summary, engagement of all stakeholders is critical to this process. We're all there to help ensure the success, and we all have different objectives. We need to be aware of that, and we acknowledge that as well. We also acknowledge HTA should be an independent process. That is part of good quality decision making. But being independent isn't the same as excluding or minimizing involvement of stakeholders on that. They're not mutually exclusive, and actually all stakeholders can be part of that discussion whilst remaining the actual assessment itself being independent there. As we've seen already, stakeholder engagement is there already in a lot of sort of European institutions and processes, including the EMA. So this isn't new. Let's learn from that itself. And then finally, manufacturer engagement does add significant value both now, when we implement the regulation itself, and also in the future. And let's not lose sight here that we all want to ensure that patients get access to the innovative medicines and technologies that will be coming through in the EU, and they will benefit from that, acknowledging that choices have to be made. So I will finish on that, and thank you for your time today.